大家好，欢迎收看《影响未来趋势领袖专访》，我是主持人杨坤修。今天要跟大家分享的主题是迈向生命经济的心灵环保。近年来，冲击我们人类生活的极端气候、肆虐的疫情以及地缘政治的冲突等现象，都是人类直接与间接地对环境的破坏，以及对我们自身利益追求下的反馈，造成这些不永续的生活与经济形态。它的原因有哪些呢？有什么样的方法可以让我们能够从根本地来翻转这一切呢？很开心今天邀请到法鼓山联合国 NGO 规划小组的负责人常济法师来为大家做分享。法师您好。我们首先请法师跟我们分享一下，造成目前人类不永续生活的因素有哪些呢？
谢谢杨老师。So currently, what are some of the factors that is leading to unsustainability in lifestyles? So what is happening in the world right now is that as a consequence of unsustainable lifestyle is the first one. What the UN Secretary General has been speaking about is the triple planetary crisis. The first crisis is the crisis of the pandemic, and it has been going on for 3 years. And during those 3 years, we have experienced a lot of lockdown because of how contagious the virus is. So with the lockdowns, there is a lot of uncertainty because there's no precedent to this kind of pandemic because it's very, very global in scale and it's extremely contagious. So what happens is with all this is that livelihoods are affected. There is a loss of income and people are plunged into poverty. And not only that, there's sometimes their friends or their family members may have died because of the pandemic or the virus or COVID-19. And there's a lot of uncertainty to the lifestyle and how this pandemic is going to affect people's lives. Now, the next crisis that the Secretary General was talking about is actually climate change. Currently, our climate is at code red. The experts around the world are saying that our lifestyle is really very unsustainable. And if we continue business as usual, by the end of this century, this means most people will still be alive to witness this. Our temperatures are going to rise to 4 degrees warmer than pre-industrial levels. And what we have seen right now also around the world, it doesn't matter if it's rich countries or developed countries, or if it's the poor countries or the developing countries, no one is left behind. The devastation that is caused by a lot of these extreme weather events. So there is the loss of property. And with the loss of property, a lot of people are forced to leave their homes because they have to find a safer place to go to. And when they go to safer place, we would call these people the environmental refugees. And we're actually going to see more and more of this happening. It's not just going to be happening with a few countries. It's going to be happening also within countries themselves too, as people have to move to higher grounds because of the extreme weather events. All right, so the third crisis that the Secretary General was speaking about is about wars. And the current Ukraine war, as we have all experienced this, what happened with it is that the cost of energy went up and also the cost of food went up. It's not just within the continent of Europe, but it actually affected the whole world. And with that, livelihoods are challenged and they're plunged into poverty. Not only that, as more and more people have difficulties in their own survival, they will rely on governments for more support. And however, government services are also very, very strained. And there's also a lot of internal conflicts that are happening within countries because of all of these tensions and a lot of insecurities that they're experiencing in their livelihoods. So that's the first one. But we would call this actually the external factors that you can see. They're still only the tip of the iceberg of the whole situation. We should also look internally at what are the causes for all of these external factors. I would call this actually the 3 tragedies that are happening in our Anthropocene age. Human population right now, as of 2022 in November, the UN has announced that we are now at 8 billion people on this planet. So we have already entered the Anthropocene age. Now, with the Anthropocene age, whatever humans do does have a visible impact on the planet. So we have also what we call the triple tragedies. Now, the first one is what we call the tragedy of the commons. And the second one is the tragedy of the horizons. And the third one is the tragedy of consciousness. Now, what is tragedy of commons? Now, tragedy of commons means our abuse of natural resources, because we are only thinking about maximizing our own desires and maximizing our profits. So we actually abuse the natural environment. How do we do that? It's because we view everything, including human beings too, as objects to fulfill our own needs. And when we do that, we do not care about what happens to the environment. We assume that it's there for us, the resources are there for us to use forever. So that is what we call the tragedy of the commons, because we overfish, we overgraze, we cut down and clear out too many forests that led to a lot of environmental degradation that actually affects our livelihood and our survival on this planet. Now, the second tragedy is the tragedy of horizons, like I was touching on before, is the emphasis on short-term benefits, right, and on the short-term vision. So anything that we do, we only think about the immediate gratification that we have or the maximizing of short-term profits. So to the extent that it actually challenges and it damages the long-term sustainability of the entire planet. So an example of this would be the focus on short-term profits at the peril of long-term sustainability of businesses. And even in politics, you would see politicians that are very focused on the short term, in which they're only concerned about getting re-elected and during the next elections, rather than really thinking about the long-term benefit and welfare of their constituencies. Now, the third tragedy is what we call tragedy of the consciousness. Now, what is that? So tragedy of the consciousness means it is our focus on science and knowledge in a way that is very fragmented. So we are specializing, which is not a problem, but we're specializing at the cost of seeing holistic, the connection between all of these sciences. And when that happens, we lose the reverence for life because we can't see life as a whole, life as being connected. So when that happens, we will only, again, focus on the short term without consideration for the connection that we have with all the living things on this planet that has every right to live on this planet too. So this is the three triple crises. And I would call this actually the inner crisis that is happening with the Anthropocene within the human species that we should be correcting too. It's not only the triple crisis of the external of what is happening with pandemic and with climate change and with the wars, but at the same time we need to work also at the inner crisis that humanity is faced with.
感谢法师的分享。刚刚法师的分享过程当中，跟我们提到了几件事情，造成我们现在人类不永续的生活，可以分成外在的因素跟内在的因素。外在的因素点出了三大的危险，包含了疫情、气候变迁跟这个战争的冲突。那在内在的部分呢，有提到就是第一个是公共场域，然后 public。这种 common 的这种悲剧，那另外一种就是所谓的视野上面的悲剧，以及最后就是说这个我们人的内在的这个心智上的悲剧。所以有外在的因素跟内在的因素，让我们现在人类不永续的生活是长这个样子。那接下来跟法师请教的就是说，如果这些因素持续下去的话，会造成什么样的这个人类的生活形态呢？
So if we continue business as usual, that we don't change, currently what happens is that we have what we call the death economy. Now, what is the death economy? So we could look at it this way. throughout the human civilization, we started out with just survival, right? Just our survival. So what is our survival? Our survival is that we feel very inadequate. We feel that there's a lot of insufficiencies. So there's inadequacy is we're not good enough. So we're not good in what sense that we're not good enough? We're not smart enough. We're not powerful enough. We're not pretty enough. We're not educated enough. Or maybe I'm not rich enough, so on and so forth. So you're constantly in your mind, you're thinking about all that you're not enough. So when you think about it in this way, it generates a lot of fear, right? So with all of this fear, you feel that you have to compete, that you feel that you're separate from everything in life around you. You don't see that. You only see what happens in the end is your own personal fulfillment. And when that happens is then what you see is that we feel we're separate from all phenomena outside. And everything outside, again, is viewed as objects to fulfill our needs. So are these objects or these things, it doesn't matter if it's humans or if it's nature or if it's things that we need to try to accomplish, we would see them as three ways. First one is, are they going to benefit me, right? And the second one is, are they going to harm me? Or they are actually obstacles. Or the third one is they're irrelevant, and we would behave according to how we view these objects. And how do we see that? So we would see that also in our relationship with people. How does that manifest when we are in that kind of frame? So what we would see is that we're not good enough, so we always want to compete with other people, and we're always comparing with other people. So when you do that, then you feel there's a need to coerce, that you need to get people and persuade people and convince people to your point of view and to agree with what you want. So there's coercion, there's control, and there's a lot of competition. And even if we say cooperation, in this kind of mindset of inadequacy, of insufficiency, of fear, this kind of cooperation is only because I'm cooperating with you. It's because I see this cooperation as something that is going to benefit me, right? So that focus on me, I, me, and mine. And how is that going to manifest in the living environment is that success, this whole definition of success, is based on the maximization of short-term benefits, right? Short-term consumerism, and also on short-term profits. So when you're maximizing all of this, you're actually maximizing it regardless of the cost of all these activities that would have on the environment and on society. And also, you're doing this at the cost of, you're also disregarding at the cost of the destruction that it would cause to the environment, the destruction that it's going to cause to people, and the destruction it's going to cause on all living things on this planet. So in the end, what is happening with the natural environment is that we are consuming the very things that is going to keep us alive, the very things that will sustain us, that will keep life on this planet alive. So that is what we would call the death economy.
感谢法师的分享。刚刚法师分享到，就是从系统性的当中，从4个面向去看，造成我们现在所谓的法师所说的 death economy 死亡经济的4个面向，分别是从心灵上、礼仪上、生活上以及自然环境上的4个面向。那接下来要跟法师请教，就是说，有什么样的方法或者是系统性的可以改变我们目前的现况呢？
So what I would propose actually with the death economy, because the definition of success is about maximizing short-term benefits and consumption and also profits, then we should probably start from shifting that definition of what success means. So it should be shifted to the long-term benefits of humans and also all living things on this planet. So it's the prosperity of this planet. If we could shift to that, then we would be willing to, one is on the external environment, what happens is that we would be willing to invest in cleaning up all the pollution, like for instance, cleaning up all the plastic pollutions in the oceans and on land. And not only that, is that we would also invest money into regenerating these environments that we have destroyed. When it comes to technology, that we would also come up and innovate technology in a way that does not destroy the planet. Now, when we say that, then people have a tendency to say, okay, let's go straight into action. But we would usually say, hold on. Don't go straight into action right now, because that's only a behavioral change. But it's not sustainable because it still requires an inner shift of consciousness that is required to really sustain this. And how do we do that? So that's why we go back again. Let's focus on the inside. What do we need to shift inside of us? So the first thing is we need to shift from insufficiency into sufficiency. We need to shift from inadequacy to adequacy. So when we do that, then we know when you can shift from that, this means we're not alone on this planet. It is not just this separation. Rather, you see connection, right? You're connected with life on this earth. And when I say that is that, we have this erroneous view that we think that human is in the center of this earth, but it's not true. Actually, humans is only a part of life on this earth. So therefore, what we should say is life is the center of this earth. And we say life, it's not just humans, but it's all life, that all living things on this planet have every right to enjoy the prosperity of this planet. So that is called sufficiency. So when you can do that, and when you feel the connection with all life on this earth, you generate this kind of love. Not love in the selfish way that it benefits me, but rather just love, because this is just, it's an amazing feeling when you feel very connected to this earth. So that it's very holistic. And when you can do that, then you realize that whatever that you can enjoy, that everyone or every living thing on this planet can and should enjoy. And when that happens, how do we interact with people? So in the social environment, we would go from a coercion into connection. Right? We find this kind of connection. So instead of that, then instead of persuading people, instead of convincing people your point of view is correct, you inspire people. And that's a very different space. And when you can inspire people, then instead of just, competition, you're looking at partnership, right? It's not competition where it's for my benefit, but it's partnership where it's a win-win situation. And how can we do this? The whole thing comes back to this love again. And this love actually translates into care. You really care. You care for the person's success, the other person's success. You care for all living beings' ability to thrive on this earth. And you really care, and it comes deep from within your heart. So when that happens, very naturally, in the living environment, you would focus on the long-term benefit and sustainability of the planet and human species. So very naturally, we would be willing to partner together, to inspire each other, to clean up the pollution, to regenerate the earth and regenerate the environment that we have destroyed. So when we can do this, then in the natural environment, it already shows that we are recognizing the fact that we are a part of life on this earth. Instead of pillaging the earth, we see that we are a part of a life on this earth, and we're not seeing ourselves as separate. So that is how we could move from the death economy into a living economy, into a life economy in which we could actually create sustainable life.
感谢法师的分享。刚刚法师的分享说，我们有机会从所谓的 death economy 死亡经济，翻转成为所谓的 life economy。那这4个面向，不论我们在采取任何的行动之前，最重要的是我们要先检视我们的内心的部分。所以说从4个面向当中来翻转这样的这个生活形态，分别是从所谓的最一开始从心灵的层面，第二个是从礼仪的部分，然后一直到我们的生活的面向，一直到自然环境的面向。非常感谢法师的分享。那接下来就是在请教法师，法鼓山在这个永续发展的议题上，有没有什么相关的这个倡议或实际的作为，对国际社会做了什么样的贡献跟影响力？
So what we try to do actually is when we're introducing protecting the spiritual environment in the international community, what we hope to do is we hope to offer a compassionate, wise, and nonviolent way of looking at the situation and correcting the situation. So what we've done is that we have conducted a lot of global citizenship workshops around the world with young people, and also we have organized the inner dimensions of climate change with youth ecologists around the world. And this is what we're offering to them, the protecting the spiritual environment as a holistic way and a nonviolent way and a very compassionate way of doing things, doing the same thing that they're doing, but then doing it in a different way, because the inner being is sourced from love, is sourced from compassion and wisdom. So that's what we try to do and what we share with. So the first one is that we share protecting the spiritual environment. And what that means is we try to encourage in the young people the importance of right views. Right? So what does right views mean? It is the willingness to look at things as it is. When we say looking at things as it is that change is a constant. But people sometimes resist change. And when they resist change, they create a lot of suffering within themselves. But not only that, it's also manifested outside with suffering with the people they interact with and in their life that they're living in. We tell them with the right views is to have the right courage, to have the courage to actually look at the situation as it is and look at it with wisdom and compassion so that you could find the best alternatives in making change and bringing about change and how you confront change and how you embrace change. So that's the first environment. And the second environment, when we say the natural environment, what we try to convey this to other people, to young people, the natural environment is really about interbeing. So interbeing means it's that we are connected in this earth. All living beings on this earth is connected. Humans are connected even within the human race. We're not alone, we're not separate. They are not commodities for us to use, but rather that we're all connected. So when we can do it that way, we would look at Earth as a community. We would see all life on this earth as brothers and sisters. So that's the living environment. It's about interbeing. So when we talk about the living environment, then we're talking about connecting all these fragments. When we say fragmented reality, it's because our focus on too many specialization. There are a lot of issues that we're dealing with, but they're all connected with sustainability issues. Even like climate change is connected to how we live our lives. We're living our lives in a way that is very unsustainable. And not only that, gender issues, racial issues, political issues, even, issues to do with animals, animal rights, or even earth rights, issues that we are trying to do it in a way that connects these, to see the interlinkages with all of these issues so that they could see holistically what the real problems are. And when you can connect that, it is easier to develop solidarity, where people can work together effectively to deal with a lot of these issues. As we can also see with the UN and the SDGs, a lot of people are experiencing this, and even what the SDGs is conveying is all these interlinkages, the interconnection of every individual goals. They're not individual separate goals, but they're all connected. So that is the living environment. The last environment that we try to share with young people also in the programs is the social environment. It means human solidarity, human unity. We have all these labels that we have created in society, all this what we call isms, right? For instance, patriarchy or matriarchy, or that we could have rankism, right? All the different ranks, or classism. Right? So what classism means is all these different classes. All these things are keeping us separate. All these labels are keeping us separate. So we hope through the social environment is to reconnect all of us together, remove all of these labels so that we could heal from all the harm that has been created by all this labels and all these separation, and that we could come together in solidarity, that we are one human race, regardless of all our beautiful, unique differences. But the commonality is we're one human race that is one part of this amazing life on this amazing blue planet. So this is what we try to convey, and we hope that, you know, our approach, our mindful approach towards, you know, sustainable issues, towards climate change issues, would be able to contribute towards the larger movement.
感谢法师精彩的分享，让我们知道法鼓山在国际社会中的努力跟影响力。要翻转我们的永续的生活，其实需要大家透过不同的面向来共同的努力才能达成的。认识心灵环保与实践4种环保，可以让我们系统性的从内在的认知跟心智上的转换，到外在对社会、环境与生活上的保护。心灵环保是一个落实人类永续生活的共同概念。感谢法师的分享，感谢，
谢谢杨老师。